Okay, I went to wait another 17 questions.
Oh, I gotta fix my frame.
You fixed it, but you aren't in it.
All right, I think I fixed. We'll find out in the first question. Oh, sorry. If you're watching on Saturday, we have a different system, and usually I wait to see myself on the clock, and I don't see myself. So I was just waiting for the clock to go somewhere, and it didn't. So anyway, sorry if you wonder why I was just sitting there wandering around. Anyway, welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions every day, every single day, 7 days a week. And so if you have questions, of course, you can go ahead and throw them into the Dropbox here. This is askofficehours.global, askofficehours.global. You can ask those questions, and we will get to them sometimes on the same day, sometimes on the next day. We won't get to them on Sunday because we don't save that show. So if you ask them today, we may get to them today. We may get to them on Monday, but you'll always be able to go back and look at them on YouTube. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Go ahead, Jeffrey. What do we got?
We're starting today with Douglas Carmichael. Asking, has AWS been the dominant cloud for production workflows, or has anyone had experience with Google Cloud or Azure?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
For software, we used a lot of both Azure and Google Cloud, but for production, for some reason, I don't know, our agency has, our production company has primarily been using AWS. And it could be that some of the things we are doing is also embraced by AWS for re-encoding signals, etc. But I don't know. Could be several reasons.
Yeah, in general, the experience that we've had is a lot of the subsystems that make it smaller, make it better for smaller companies to use AWS are not available as readily in Google or Azure. Azure is really designed around large scale solutions, and Google has a lot of things that we do use again. But I think that as we cobble things together, it is. I think that AWS has figured that out. I think that there's a huge world underneath AWS that could be a lot simpler. Like AWS is just like, there's a lot of stuff in it that could be a lot smoother and less complicated than they have there. I've had conversations with them. I'm like, do you do that on purpose? Like, just make it hard for people to do it so that you don't have to deal with people, because it oftentimes is a crazy way to set things up. So, but Google and Azure tend to be more complex, so they tend to be more programming driven than AWS. Next question.
Next question comes from Eric Hertz from Hartford, Connecticut. What should I be considering when selecting a remote desktop technology to support Windows servers, which are running vMix or OBS for live video production?
I am not running vMix or OBS for remote video production, so I'm not going to be able to give you a personal answer on that. I know that a lot of people here are using Splashtop and Parsec. Teradici is another one. So those are the big three that we hear a lot as far as those are the three that get used the most, it appears. So I would take a look at those. Next question.
Next question comes from Marielle Zio Mira from Wabaloob. How do we volunteer to help out what's going on in after hours during the NAB show? Can we volunteer to be co-hosts? How do we volunteer people to help out with managing all the QR code questions during NAB show? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for the support. The team for the show for the NAB and managing the questions is pretty well laid out. So we closed that about a month ago, and you'll find that for a lot of these shows we'll put an announcement out. So keep your eye out for that. But it's just hard for us to add people at the end because we just don't know them as well. The best thing to do is to start to get involved with volunteering. You can go to officehours.global/volunteer and sign up and become part of the volunteer staff early on, and then that's how you kind of end up slowly becoming part of a trusted group of people that make all of this stuff happen. So volunteering early it is the best way to go. And the best way to help right now is to donate. We're spending a lot of money on this. So officehours.global/donate would be a great place to put whatever makes sense for you to help us get through the show. Because even though we have over $200,000 of hardware that's been donated to us, or not donated, but lent to us, it's still an expensive show, and we've had a lot of support from Zoom and others. It's still a very expensive show to execute, and so your support would be great. Next question.
Next question comes from Alexander Knight from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. These Genelec monitors are mounted to some Manfrotto arms. What model? Anyone have an idea of these mounted? What are these mounted to the road case?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
I don't know exactly the model of these arms, but we've used similar stuff just to get a magic arm that are powerful enough. Genelecs are traditionally kind of heavy. They are not the easiest one. And I know Genelec also has a lot of accessory plates fitted that are made specifically for different models. Those have different types of connections, either normally screws going down to some magic arm connections, and there you can have just a super clamp or similar stuff and have a magic arm in between. normally the way we tend to use this is to have a kind of a round receptacle in the flight case itself, and then have just a short piece of pipe going up to the plate where we put the speaker. So just be sure that you have something that are not sagging towards throughout the show. It will be really annoying.
Next question.
Next up comes from Terry Heaps from Sparks, Nevada. I am not a video audio professional, but have been interested for over 30 years. How can I get more involved? I have gone through sign-up process a couple of times, and I have not seen anything more different and have not been given any response. And this is a QR code, by the way.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Yes, well, Alex mentioned the website earlier, a global officehours.global/volunteer, excuse me. And that would be a great place to start. And if you look, there are 2 or 3 different ways to sign up. There are regular sessions where you can learn to be a panelist, and those are a great chance if you want to come on and talk. And if you want to be more of the backroom boys and girls, then I suggest you use that link, sign up to the backroom, and someone will come back to you, because it takes a large team to keep this truck on the road. And I know they're always looking for new people with skills and excitement. And you don't have to be a video professional, which I think I proved, to be involved.
Yeah, the definitely the first place. I don't know exactly why you haven't heard anything from us. I apologize for that, but make sure that you have signed up at Office, as Nigel said, officehours.global/volunteer, and you will start getting emails. We have our new panelist meeting this today after the show, and then we have a new volunteer meeting in about 2 weeks. So that'll happen there, and that'll actually be right after NAB. And so that's the best way to get in. Is to one of those 2 is to go to one of those. If you're not in our Discord, you can get that. You should be able to do, if you sign up for Join Us, you should start getting an email to join us, and then you'll start to see emails. At the bottom of the email, there's a link to the there is a link to at the bottom to Discord, as well as a link to become a volunteer. So those are the things you want to follow to get more involved. And we would love to have you. Many people have started, in many of the stuff much of what we've done without necessarily having the skills when they start. And our goal is to make sure that they have the skills later. So as they work, and also make a couple friends on the way. Next question.
Next up is Mathieu Leconte asking, just noticed that YouTube live stream audio is 44.1, not 48 kilohertz. If my camera sends 48 kilohertz, will there be any sync issues, or will YouTube convert?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
I haven't seen that. We normally do 48 because of the recording that we do on the same encoder. So I'm pretty sure that YouTube is transcoding that specific audio. But I'm pretty sure that Alex will fill in if there is something wrong in my statements.
Yeah, no, it definitely, YouTube does 44.1 and will encode properly from 48. It's actually the sync is a little off on YouTube. It's it goes plus or minus about a frame and a half. And if you watch something that manages it all the time, you'll just see it kind of wave back and forth. And that's because your audio and your video don't come to you at the same time. They come as 2 separate feeds, because if audio was stuck to the video and the video lost frames, you'd start to see clipping, and you'd find that people will put up with lost frames a lot before they'll put up with broken up audio. So that's why they come there. And so you'll see it kind of fluctuate back and forth. You'll see the same thing in Zoom. Zoom does a lot of moving your audio back and forth depending on what your bandwidth looks like, and even your video. So those are the things you want to look at. You can just deliver at 48. I have to admit, I'm a control personality, so I set my encoder to 44.1, knowing that YouTube is going to do 44.1, because I just want to have control of that. But YouTube will do it for you if you send it 48. But all my encoding generally is set at 44.1 to make sure that I do that adjustment and give YouTube exactly. I always believe in giving a platform that I'm handing it exactly the content that it wants it, exactly how it wants to get it. We were talking about the other day about LinkedIn, and I got a lot of feedback from that. Actually, a lot of people who stream to LinkedIn watch our show, and they said, "Oh, well, we set it to these numbers and this cadence, and it works perfectly." Like it will not work if you do 1080p at 6 megs a second, but if you do 720p at 3.8 megs a second, evidently with the right cadence and everything else, they say they do it all the time, and it works perfectly. So, and I got like 3 or 4 different people correcting us from yesterday, saying it's not. It actually worked pretty well. They just have to do it the way it wants to do it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
The other reason for the split between the audio and video is because if the video has to change the resolution, it doesn't affect the audio. And if you turn off your phone and just listen to the audio, you can do that. Otherwise, it would stop completely.
Next question.
Next up is from Vincent Alvarez from Bellingham, Washington. Is there any concern for vibration coming from an onboard Anchor speaker being picked up by Alex's all-in-one camera rig?
There could be. So we're going to find out. The only way to, you'll find that I don't worry about things too much until I build them. And then I go, oh, okay. So this is what it looks like right now. I'm going to shorten some of the things so that we got the Sony cameras now. So this is the FX6 with the lens. And so what we have here is an Anchor. And my son printed this. It was hooked up as metal, but my son printed I gave him the speaker and he printed it's great having a son that can model in 3D and know how to use the printer. So this is TPU, a TPU connection there with the monitor below it. Then we have the rails. I don't know. It's not that big of a speaker, so I'm not clear that it'll do a lot of vibration there. But we're going to find out. There's a lot going on here. So this is a shoulder rig right now. There's a lot of metal and mass to it as well. It's not really that light as it goes through there. So we'll see. The only way to know is to do it. We will show you more next week. We're trying to get at least one full camera rig, and we'll be getting all the FR7s up this weekend, so to make sure that they're all working correctly. And we're actually going to try by Monday to do some remote controls of those. Jonas is going to be setting up the. I was going back and forth right before the show, but setting up the Pep link to get it ready to go, and we'll start testing that as well. So anyway, we've got a lot of bits and pieces happening there. We'll let you know, but it could be a problem, and then we'll figure it out. Next question.
Next question comes from Paul Walhus from Austin, Texas. I got the TCL 98, not an LED wall, working with the camera, lights, and microphone. But to block light reflection, how do you rig this stuff up?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Normally, you just use gaffer's tape and fix it to something nearby. I spoke to Paul a little bit earlier this morning, and you can have a small tripod, and depending on how big this piece is, you have to kind of secure it so that it's not bending towards the light during the broadcast. But having just a small tripod, you could use something like from Insta360 or Small Rig. Just have small feet on those and put it vertically up on the side of the light you want to control, and then just tape it or just wrap it around the pin coming up, and you'll be good. Another thing you could do or try and make sure that it doesn't fall off is just to bend it around the light, and you just kind of have it surround the light itself, and just make sure that you don't shadow out anything that you should be putting the light on. So just try.
Yeah. So, and the main thing is when you think about the person who's going to be there in front of the table, basically think about where your lights are. Your lights should be as high as you can make them before you start to see their eyes clip up. So typically your lights are going to be like right here, and you want to make sure that you point them down. They need to be kind of pointed down there, and then you're going to do the same thing with the foil. A lot of times our lights have some kind of flange to them that can be kind of pushed back and forth there, but you have so what you're trying to do is set that light up to look down on the person. You want to see highlights when they're looking into the camera. You want to see highlights across the top of their eyes. As soon as those disappear, you're gone too high. But outside of that, get as high as you can to do that. The second thing is that the distance between the person and the 98, which you can actually create. I bet you can pull off like 5 feet, 6 feet, so almost 2 meters. You can pull off behind them with a 98 screen, and remember that the field of the angle of view of your lens makes a difference. So as you pull the camera back this way and zoom in a little bit, you can actually have a smaller and smaller and smaller monitor. so because it's because it's compressing everything. So a wide angle lens will force you to go much closer, whereas a slightly longer lens will allow you to pull back a little bit to make that happen. And then the other thing is you got to make sure that whatever your 98-inch TV is, you can tilt it forward. So being able to tilt forward is really important. It'll be about 10 or 15 degrees. You can't do more than that, or you'll start to see some kind of weird corner pinning. But outside of that, you can actually make that work. Next question.
Next up is from Guy Cochran from Seattle, Washington. How would you remotely control a Sony FR7 PTZ camera from 1,000+ miles away?
Yeah, so we're working on that. Hopefully, we'll have that working by the end of the weekend. So we haven't really done it from 1,000 miles away, but Jonas has. So we have a Sony. It's an RMIP 500 controller, and we're going to VPN into it. So we actually are going to send Guy. Guy's sending a remote Cochrane. This is a whole new thing where he's sending something that involves Guy that he already knows the answer for, but he doesn't even have to show up yet. This is like next level Cochrane. It's like an NLC, a next level Cochrane. And so anyway, so basically we're sending Guy this controller. So we're sending him this controller here. We have two of these. So we're gonna have one of them Guy's gonna have one we're gonna have on site. And so this is the again the RMIP 500 from Sony. And then we're gonna VPN. So we'll give Guy a way to VPN and he'll be able to log into it and actually run the cameras he'll be on the show running the cameras if he wants to. So and to test it, I'm probably going to put these FR7s up in my office next week just so that we can bang on them, make sure that they're working. So we'll see if we can't get that working for you pretty soon. Next question.
Next question comes from Paul Walhus from Austin, Texas. Why is rolled metal being used in so many production studios and commercial buildings like the Gigafactory, the Boring Bodega, etc.? And what are the costs?
I don't know anything about rolled metal. I know a lot about electronics, but once you move into rolled metal, even though I'm from Pittsburgh and everyone from Pittsburgh should know a lot about metal, it's kind of our birthright. I don't. So sorry about that. Next question.
Next question comes from John Foltz from Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Does anyone use the Model 214 announcer box Studio Technologies? On mine, the audio levels seems very low. I've adjusted the volume knobs and changed the settings on the dip switches, but still low volume.
And this is, let me show you what he's referring to here. So this is the 214. So this is very similar to the 205 that I have, except that I believe this one is all analog. Yeah, so this is an all analog. Oh no, it's a Dante. Huh, interesting. So this is the 214 here. Here's your mic in. What are you using? I don't know what your you'd have to tell us what your mic is to make that happen. I haven't ever had a real problem. Now, here's what I admit is I haven't had a problem with levels on Studio Technologies, but also I very rarely use mic in. I very rarely use the mic in for the, I usually use line in. So it's going through something else before it gets to it. So I haven't tried to do it with a direct mic input before, or I haven't done it very often. I can't remember the last time I did that. So anyway, so you'd have to tell us, the whole pipeline there. So maybe if you ask the question again, let us know what is the mic going into it, where you're going from it. Jeff Keithley mentioned that on the 214, make sure you have ST controller and adjust the settings if the 214 shows up in that software. Yeah, and I can probably show you what that looks like here. On ST. It's on my computer, but I can't find it for some reason. So, oh, there it is. I'll show you what this ST controller looks like. So this is the one for my 205, and if I found mine. So here's mine here. I have my gain set to 52. So you got to make sure that you figure out where you're going to put that gain there. And I realized I just said that I don't use this as a preamp, but I am using it as a preamp. so never mind. So this mic is actually being used as a preamp. But you got to make sure, like mine is working just fine where it's at here. I'm using 48 Phantom. This is but you got to make sure that I don't know if you're playing with the dip switches, but make sure that because you have a Dante version, you can open this up and you can make adjustments there. I don't know which one rules the system. So make sure you have SD controller and use it there. Next question.
Next up is Chuck Hodges from Tulum, California. How are the 6 a.m. NAB meetings going? Heard talk about them going to happen, but have they started yet? And how do we attend? Would it be better to have them at 9:30 so crew can attend to and not conflict with the show?
The 6 a.m. meetings are going on every day. We just had one this morning. If you are in a part of the volunteer crew, then you should have gotten a link to it. And then we've just been meeting after that. So I think we sent the links out there, but you have to be in the volunteer crew to be part of it. It's really not a spectator sport. I'm not sure, Chuck, if you're in that list there, but it's just for the folks that are going, and we're just kind of hashing through ideas and processes and trying to talk through what things we may need to work on. And so, but yeah, we're doing them every. I can't do any more meetings after our show. so that's why we're doing them before the show. Is 6 a.m. was the last idea. It was the last time that I had before I go to work. This is not my day job. So there was no more air. So that's why we put them at 6 o'clock. And I can't do them any earlier because I have other things I'm doing in the morning. Next question.
Not your day job. Crazy. Andy Kokendorfer from Viera, Florida asks, are there USB lights that may be configured to turn on off automatically only when a Zoom meeting has been joined? Thanks.
Good, Nigel.
I think this is one of the things. Is there an easy way to do it? Is there a cheap way to do it? In terms of ways to do it, there are some very complicated, very expensive ways you can do this. I know if you integrate it into a home automation system, people like Crestron and stuff have solutions that they put in an executive office where, as the Zoom call comes in, it shuts the shades, turns the lights on. I can't promise there'd be USB lights. I know with Zoom controllers, some various different Zoom controllers for Zoom rooms have the ability to integrate and send messages off the rest of them. But I think from a standard PC, unless you find a piece of software like Isadora or something that can build you an automated script, the best way to do it would be to have USB lights that were controlled on something like a Stream Deck. And as the Zoom call started, you just press the Stream Deck button.
Go, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think the one button studios have that ability, but I wouldn't want to have too much automation on it because there's going to be those times where the lights don't turn on, and then all of a sudden you're in a completely dark room and nobody can see you at all. So I would always do separate buttons at least. I'd have one button on my Stream Deck that'll turn the lights on and one button that will start the Zoom session. So I would do it that way, make sure those lights are solid before you go on.
Next question.
Next question comes from Hazmat Gajar from Cape Town, Africa. As setting up Discord community for MetaLearn, our expanded medical project. Has anyone conducted a poll on Discord, generic or bot?
I've seen polls pop up, and I've mostly ignored them. So I haven't really used the polls inside of Discord. I have to admit that I really like Discord for what it is. I don't really like most of the other features. I'm not going to say that as the law or anything else. I'm in about 25 servers, and I find almost every feature other than what we use it for to be truly annoying. Like I don't even like the threads. Like as soon as someone turns one of their discussions into threads, it's kind of the end of me reading that area. So I don't know. I mean, I'm in a lot of these. I see them happen in many of these servers, and I haven't found that they're a great experience. I think Discord does what it did originally really, really well. I'm not sold on the other features. Next question.
Next question comes from Gabriela S. Now Mestera from Saint Sue Marie. If the design for the year isn't ready, why not just use the amazing crew shirts again that people were wearing last year?
Because there were none. There haven't been any crew shirts. So if there were, people made them up. But yeah, they're not there yet. We'll have them. We're very close now to being able to get that stuff done, I think. Next question.
Next one comes from Hasmukh Gajar from Cape Town. Not wishing to purchase another camera, I wish to leverage my Nikon Z6 as my meetings webcam. Which lens will be the best for good enough depth of field?
I would start at 2.8. 2.8, I think, is table stakes unless you're in a full frame. I guess I don't know if the Z6 is a full frame. I think it's APS. So if it's a full frame, you can probably get away with four. But otherwise, I would consider for most framing is 2.8 is what you're looking for. It's not a matter of what lens. You'll get a zoom lens. It's more expensive to get a 2.8 zoom lens. And so what I've focused on is figuring out what I wanted with the zoom lens and then putting on a lens that does that. And so as a result, I have a 35 that is on a Super 35 right now. Peter, Z6 is a full frame. So thanks, Peter, in the chat. So then you can probably go F4, and then probably work. You just need to have, and then the main thing is then what is the distance from you to the wall? So you want to be, it's you to whatever's behind you becomes important. Then it's not just, unfortunately, this is a calculus problem. It's an array of all these different things you have to kind of figure out what's your focal length, how far away are you from the camera, how far away are you from the back wall. I would say that, I consider when someone asks me like, how deep does my room need to be to do this? I say 15 feet. Like you just need 15 feet. You can't don't try to put this into something smaller than 15 feet, and if you want it to look good, you want to build something out behind you, you want to have room in front of you, you want to do all the things you need to do. It's 15 feet, so 20 makes it more comfortable, but 15 is the right number for a room. And if you make it smaller than that, it gets more and more difficult. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, it's all about geometry as well. As we widen the lens field of view, you of course use more of the background as well. So you have to make sure that you have everything calculated and good to go. And then when you start to choose type of lens and f-stop, you definitely need to think about the distance behind you. And normally 2.8 is good for a normal 50 millimeter lens. If you're going wider than that, you probably would like to have it a little bit smaller, like 1.4. And similarly, if you have the possibility to have the camera far away from you, you can have a higher f4 or maybe even 5.6 if the distance behind you is good enough. So it's a test and trial thing. I suggest you just try.
Next question.
Next up is from Peter Junansson of Sweden. Proton Camera is said to be releasing the smallest broadcast quality camera with the size of a 1-inch cube. Will this be a success?
Go ahead, Nigel.
I believe, and I've looked at it, that everything I've seen has been written by a marketing person. I don't know what broadcast quality means in their mind. 1-inch cube probably doesn't mean a 1-inch sensor. So we're going to have to wait and see. I think there's just not enough information. I do think those little box cameras are going to become more important. They're very useful, maybe for doing what we do here without buying, a huge camera which you're not using most of the functions of. Without knowing any more details about what the sensor is and what the lens is and the rough, it's really hard to call it. Maybe, as they say, we'll see at NAB.
Jeffrey?
Last year at NAB, I reported on like 2 or 3 different companies that had small cameras. I'm wondering if this is like, a millimeter difference and really doesn't make a difference because it's just a millimeter in one direction that doesn't make a difference. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if this company Proton Camera comes to NAB. As Nigel said, it'd be nice to get them on and check them out and see how that works. But there are a few camera companies that are in this realm, and I know that there's one that has a pretty good sensor, and I think it's a 1-inch sensor that I reported on last year.
Yeah, the big one now in this area is the Sony LR1. That is the one that kind of is ruling the system at the moment, and it's not much smaller, not much bigger than the one that you see here. The advantage that it has is it's got a lot of infrastructure behind it. I am heartened that it's a German company. Usually they don't usually overstate what they can do, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. But yeah, they don't say what the sensor size is, which concerns me. That if they had a Super 35 or for full frame, I think they would tell us. Next question.
Next question comes from the QR pool from Chuck Hodges from Tulum, California. For the budgeting question, wasn't asking about the estimated price of a booth at an event, but the total estimated cost at the time of the Office Hours Global booth as designed and expected to be used at this time. What is the number not including personal items?
I have worked covering events I realized as we got into this that I worked covering these events for 30 years. And so I really thought I had a sense of how this was going to work. I just haven't had a booth that I had to pay for. Like every other time I've done it, I've like just shown up and I haven't had any infrastructure that I needed. So I had a booth at Macworld a couple times, but it was like we showed up with whatever circuit they handed us was enough. And we still we had 40 people in a line to be at our booth. So we did well, given that we had no money to do it. But they cost like $1,000 or $2,000. This has been a little bit heavier lift because we have a lot of infrastructure that's going into it. And so yeah, we're learning and we'll figure it out. And again, if you want to help, officehours.global/donate. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and I've done this before for like CES and things. I was with a group called Tech Podcasts, and we did live streams from the show floor, and they still do. But the big thing is it really changes. So we can give you a number today, and you're expecting that for your show next week, and that number can completely be different. And it's really dependent. There's a lot of dependence on getting people to helping you out, like with Zoom helping out with the bandwidth. That's just as you said, a big haul right there.
And we absolutely have the best rig in NAB. Like I guarantee you that nobody else has Sony FR7s and Vislink transmitters on top of all the other things that we're doing. Like we have the best rig. So that's also, there's a certain expense into it, but we have the largest crew and the best setup we may not have the biggest booth, but we have the largest crew and the best setup that anybody has on the floor. So I think that we have a real opportunity here to do some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, your last part of the question says not including personal items. So I don't know what personal items are, but there's, as many of you guys know, when you go to an event like this, and particularly in somewhere like Vegas, which is union controlled, there are huge expenses that I can turn up and do all of this myself. You just don't get to do. This is a very, very controlled environment. They do this very well. They do this very often. And you are just a pain if you think you're helping. So, you've really got to think about if you're asking because you want a budget to come next year, then maybe we can put together a post-event budget. But you've got to think that Vegas, I think Orlando is pretty much the same as well. Some of these large conventions, they're very good at doing this, but they're very controlled and there's very little flexibility. And the other thing, sorry, one other thing I was going to say. Also, there's a big difference between you and your mates going and sending a bunch of team to go. If you're sending a bunch of people to go work on a stand commercially, you should be budgeting $1,000 a day for those people in Vegas. And you might think, well, $1,000, that's ridiculous. But you've got to pay for flights, you got to pay for hotels during a big conference, which could be expensive. You've got to pay for meals. It probably won't cost you $1,000 a day, but you should be budgeting $1,000 a day for people you are sending and paying the expenses of.
And usually I tend to take things on knowing that it's going to hurt, like the first time. And, I try to minimize it. So we've gotten a lot to help minimize it. Without NAB and Zoom support, we wouldn't even try to do a booth. In fact, we canceled the booth in New York because I was like, I can't make that turn. And mostly I couldn't make the turn to have the connectivity. If I couldn't have the connectivity, it didn't make it worth doing. And so what we've also learned doing this is how interested many vendors are in being covered on the like we were like, well, we'll see if people want to show up. Everybody wants to show up. So I think that what we're going to be doing is, we'll get through this show. Again, I think we have the opportunity to probably build the best stream that 2 years ago when Jeffrey and Jeff and others were, figuring this out the first time. And working on those, I got pings that like this is the best coverage of NAB on the floor. Like that was when we were really getting started at it when they were cutting. And this is a different, this is a a higher investment. And I think that we have a really good chance of doing something better than everything else is done at NAB, and it's the most aggressive coverage of NAB I've ever worked on. Anyone at any budget, like this is the biggest. And I don't know if it'll all work. I mean, you may see some failures, you may see some stuff that's not working, but it's the most aggressive version of this that I've ever worked on. And if we can survive it, learn from it, and then we'll start planning the planning for next NAB will start most likely in June. Just so you know, like it's going to be like we're going to figure out what we learned and what we liked and what we didn't like and what we wish we had, and we'll have it the spec instead of being done a month before will be done 6 months before, and the funding will all be done 3 months before. So, and we've learned that that's the curve. Like that's the curve that we need to be working at to make that actually work. And so, so expect that to turn on pretty soon. And again, we're trying to figure out how many, we can do like this. It might be one a year. So it depends on really where, how we do funding and everything else. Next question.
Next up is from David Brady from New York, New York. What options do I have for an old multimedia DVD ROM I unearthed? It's an interactive database encyclopedia of silent films that requires Windows 95, Windows 98 to run.
Nigel?
Yeah, I mean, old DVDs are very useful for frisbees. We used to melt them into ashtrays. That was a big thing to do for a while, but now we don't all smoke, so we don't do any of that. The reality is, I would tell you that there are a number of choices. You can go to eBay, David, and buy yourself a Windows 95 PC. I think they're $300 or $400. Make sure, obviously, you get one with a CD-ROM drawer in it. What I had a series which I just loved. That was actually a television series made by, I think it was Thames Television in the UK, called Hollywood: The Pioneers. It's a 13-part series. I have the original book written by Brownlow and Gill. That's what got me into movies in 1980. I found the whole thing on YouTube, and that gave me 13 hours of joy watching that series again. Maybe the best series I've ever seen on Hollywood, at least. So check YouTube to see whether the particular items you're looking on there. I am never failed to be amazed at what is on YouTube. There are a number of emulators you can buy. I was playing with the Windows 95 emulator, which exists in a browser. Problem is getting attached to a C drive. An optical drive. You can get a C drive on, but getting an optical drive is hard. And there may even be agencies, or it may be lost forever.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So you should be able to put it into a newer machine, unless it's just running some software that never got updated, like an old version of JavaScript or something like that. So putting it in 95, 98, if you want to try and do ME or Vista to try and get as current as possible, that might help there. But for the most part, I don't see how it couldn't run in a newer machine, especially because you can actually set it up. You basically have to go in and say run this program in the safe mode, or I can't remember the exact term, but it's basically a little checkbox that you make that says run this with security in mind, and like it's a older program.
Good, Ronnie.
I think you just need a machine that actually has a physical DVD player. And as long as you have that, you can just spin up a virtual machine running Windows or the older Windows. Done it numerous of times. Works flawlessly.
When I was in radio, we used to get these CDs every Sunday. It was called Rock Over London, and it always, when you popped them up, we'd play it. It was a Sunday show, so we'd get them on Saturday, and we usually listen to them just for fun, and then we'd play them on Sundays. It was a paid show. You get paid to play it, for an hour or whatever. And but the CDs are worthless. They're pretty when you get them, but they're worthless the day after, because that was just the show. That's the only time the show will ever get played. It's just the way they delivered the content. And so what we used to do is we found that if you went to a gas stove and you roll them in front of the gas over the top of the gas stove, they'll get soft. Like they just kind of soften up a little bit. And you take 2 shot glasses and you set on top of one shot glass, and you just put the other shot glass over top of it and pull it down. There'll be a little left on the top after you press it down. And so you can cut that off with a hacksaw and then sand it, just to get it around there. nice little shot glass. It's got a hole in the bottom. You got to fill that in. But it's a nice little shot glass, and it looks really cool. That's my recommendation for most CDs that you have there. Next question.
Next up is from Roberto Barrow from Plymouth Meetings, Pennsylvania. Alex, a few weeks ago, you showed a new Dell monitor you bought with your system. What model was that?
Yeah, the one that I think the last one I got here. I think I was trying to find where I bought it. And this was actually relatively recently. This is the one that I bought for my system. That is not, as you can see, very expensive. $117. That's about the most I pay for my system. So for my general work area monitors, I like the bezel because I put things on it, like identifiers and stuff like that. I used to buy ones without bezels, like, ooh, it doesn't have a bezel, and then I was like, oh man, it doesn't have a bezel. Because there's a couple things that I do is when I ship these monitors, I put plexiglass across the top, and I put Velcro on the edges, and then snap the plastic on top so that I don't, because TSA breaks the monitors. So I don't like ones without bezels. I don't need to spend more money on it. That way, if it breaks, I don't really care. And it has the three things that I need, which is an IEC C13 cable, power supply. It has a HDMI input, and it has a VESA mount. And those are the three things that have to happen there. It's a little quirky about, like, it doesn't do 60 frames a second very well. Or it does do 60. It doesn't do 30 or 20. It has trouble with frame rates. You got to think about it a little bit. But outside of that, it's fine. Next question.
Next up is from Tim McCullough from Wichita, Kansas. Is Saturday a quiet day for the audio feed to Makana Lite?
It's not on today because we moved the whole system and it's not up yet. So our development team, basically pulled a very complicated and hard to move rabbit out of a hat. And I believe this is running on it. It is. I don't know if it's been. So I guess it's been restored, but it was quiet because the development team very quietly behind it is creating some serious magic. So we're the whole system's being is moving there, and Mickey says that the audio transmission is hot now, so it's not quiet. So they've done an incredible job. The entire system was moved after yesterday's show. So it is a really, really amazing work by the development team to keep the show going every single day. Next question.
Next up is from Tony Mobley from Noonan, Georgia. I am working with users PowerPoint. I want to move to Keynote, but they're not willing. Most users are on Windows machines. Would Canva presentations be another way to go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Canva's got a lot of great, so this is House of Worship. The Canva is what it really excels at is lots of templates that look nice. So if you want to move to Canva, I think it's definitely a reasonable possibility. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
So the only issue would be any type of fonts that are native to that person's machine. That's always been a problem with PowerPoint. The other option would be to have them send it as screenshots. So you get a whole bunch of JPEG files, and then you bring that into Keynote and run it that way. If there's automation that ruins that whole idea, but at least the frame will look exactly how the user intended. And then, of course, it's all about the resolution. If they're going 4:3 or 16:9, if they're running on 4K, they're running on a 1080 monitor or a 10 old 4:3 monitor, you have to worry about those things as well.
And David Brady says, "What's wrong with PowerPoint? The majority is using it." Yeah, I mean, like, again, the problem, by the way, Jeff Cohen talked about the fact that Keynote can open and export out PowerPoint, but they don't get along very well. So if you import or export from PowerPoint to Keynote, a lot of the stuff that's built in, I will admit, I haven't used PowerPoint for maybe a decade, other than to grab people's slides and say, hey, we're conforming them for broadcast. And conforming to broadcast in my world means we're going to move your PowerPoint slide into Keynote. We used to do it even for companies that were very connected to PowerPoint. So anyway, before they realized that we were moving everything into Keynote, there was two companies that make other presentation tools that got upset because we were moving all of it. I mean, not just me. I mean, like, everybody that worked for them was doing the same thing because for us, it comes down to, and I haven't looked at PowerPoint for a long time. I can tell you that 10 years ago, the reason we did it is because the kerning between letters, the spacing between letters, and the anti-aliasing on Keynote was dramatically better than PowerPoint. It may seem like a small issue, but it is the difference between feeling refined and not refined. And it was, and you could always there was just a certain like level of dorkiness that PowerPoint has that we would see relatively it just had this weird like, oh, I'm not that cool. Like, and it really we were trying to figure out what it is, because it'd be the same presentation. We were like, how is this happening? Like, it's the same thing, and we'd look at it, one looked dorky and the other one looked good, and we were trying to figure out what it was, because it was the same slide. And we realized what we had to do is do a difference over top of the other. So we put Keynote over top of, and that's when we realized that Keynote was doing this subtle thing where Apple was changing the spacing of the letters in a more dramatic way, and also changing the aliasing of the letters, and that made them look smoother. And we realized that was because we couldn't, like, we were literally taking a PowerPoint slide and putting it into Keynote, and it would look better. And we just couldn't figure it out. And we finally figured it out. And I think that Microsoft has closed that gap a little bit, and realized that was actually important. The biggest problem with PowerPoint slides is mostly the way people use them. I mean, it's less about the PowerPoint slides and more that people put a bunch of text on the screen. It's completely useless. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I was actually about to say what you just said, that what you want on your PowerPoint or your presentation is to augment and to add to the value of the content you're giving, or to, if it's for house of worship, it might be lyrics, it may be pictures, or whatever it is. You want to limit the complexity of those charts anyway, and not get too animated and too automated. So keeping it simple is the best way. And if you keep it really simple, it will probably flow from Keynote to PowerPoint and back again fairly well. However, it's just easier to go in this sort of environment with what people know, because that's not where you should be focused on spending your time.
Next question.
Next question comes from Hazma Gazar from Cape Town, South Africa. Scheduling a Teams meeting for corporate execs on looking good, sounding good in online meetings. How many folks can join the free Teams Plus event?
Nigel?
If you let us know when it is, Hazwak, I'd be happy to try and jump on and be a stooge on your call.
Next question.
Next up is from Scott Mueller from Germantown, New York. I've been trying to continue the continuity. Yeah.
Continuity
camera. Continuity. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that word.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, been trying the continuity camera with an iPhone 14 Pro and Zoom. It's a big jump from any webcam. Will we ever get a deeper control of camera settings in continuity cameras?
Probably not. Not really Apple's thing. You're better off using some of the other camera apps, whether it's Filmic Pro or Blackmagic Camera, or I apologize, I can't think of the third one. So anyway, you're going to probably want to use other cameras that are in there. To shoot is the other one that Michael makes, and so those are a couple other ones that you could use that would be great. Next question.
Next question comes from Tony Mobley from Noonan, Georgia. There seems to be a lot of Sora AI limitations in the App Store. When will the real version be there?
When OpenAI announces it, I believe. So you just want to look for the OpenAI announcement, not all the other folks that are doing wannabes. so stay tuned for that. Next question.
Next up is from Daniel Lund from Proctor, Minnesota. Has the glitchiness on the top of the frame today been addressed? To me, it looks like it's going along with the voices, only when full screen.
Yeah, we're using, as I said before, we're using a completely different system, and we're trying to figure it out right now. Like, it's incredible that we have a show today. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of things happening here, and these are all adjustments that absolutely had to happen. And the team is doing an incredible job, and there may be a couple of things that we're still ironing out. Next question.
Next up is from Morgan Price from Victoria, British Columbia. If you don't have access to Makana, what would you use in 2024 for a question input system for short-term Q&A panel education series? We're planning 6 sessions with 30 to 40 people in the session.
I'd reach out. If you have access to Makana, I'd reach out to me in Discord and let me know what you're working on. We're beta testing it a lot right now. So I don't really think there's anything else competitive out there at the moment. I'm just going to be flat out. Like I have to review these because we're doing competitive analysis, and I'm just amazed that after all these years, the Q&A systems are really pretty stinky. So anyway, you can reach out to me and we can see if we can beta test it for you. Next question.
Next up, Peter Johansson asks, from Sweden asks, the 9th of March was the last time I received an email with Mukana links from you. How do I re-register again?
You should be able to just go back into the Mukana links that are you should be able to just link, if you go back to any old email and link it. I don't think we've changed the link to get there. I think we are pulling back on having Mukana necessarily. Yeah, look in your spam folders, what Nikki said. If you're not getting the emails, then look at that. I don't know. I know we had Google had changed a bunch of stuff. So we had a registration issue that we had to like change the way our DNS works or whatever. It probably would have been early March. So that might have been where it got into your spam filter there. So I think that's probably where you're looking. That's probably what's happening there. And if you're in Discord, you can ask there, and I would highly recommend jumping into Discord if you're not. Next question.
Jeff Cohen from Miami Beach, Florida asks, in DaVinci Resolve, I have two different fully edited audio tracks. They both use the same source file and clip. Any way to point all of the edits on one track to use as a different source file?
I don't think so. I don't think that's possible. I had to think about it for a little bit, but I don't think you could do that. I think that would cause an issue. So anyway, next question.
Next up is from Vincent Alvarez from Bellingham, Washington, asking, has Alex named his all-in-one rig yet? Maybe Omnia, which is Latin for everything.
The Omnia rig. I would love to say that I could call it the Omni rig. I guess what makes it different is that it does have the screen on the front, so that's a little bit different than most of these rigs. I don't feel like there's anything I'm doing that's particularly dramatically new in that process. But I think that it's I think it's we'll see when it's done whether we want to name anything, because it is just building a rig to me. Next question.
Next question comes from Tony Mobley from Noonan, Georgia. Speaking of Keynote, what are the latest updates that Apple has produced since the Apple Works suite has been updated recently?
Nigel.
Yeah, they jumped to 14, which was a version jump. So I was expecting something fairly dramatic and didn't really see it there. If you check the README file or whatever it is, the website, you'll see there's a few things. Ironically, Tony, improvement in PowerPoint conversion around slide transitions, but it looks like mostly, at least to me, they've been doing some plumbing around collaboration and multi-use to make that better going forward. Maybe it's what it's going to do that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, I will say that I use the USDZ tools in almost every presentation at this point. So I have a 3D model that I just throw in there and I rotate it to where I need it to go. I rotated around things. So that's been the last version of it. But I think mostly it was some stability things, some collaboration issues. Those were the things that happened in the last update. Next question.
Next up is from Zach Stahlsmith from Chautauqua, New York, looking to make a switch from vMix to Wirecast 16. I used Wirecast 15 in my last job and found some encoding bugs with it, but also some great features. Any insights into Wirecast 16 running on Windows 11 machines?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Well, it's a sticky wicket right there. Wirecast has been making some major changes in the last year. The biggest one was going to their subscription model. Guy has been really working the Wirecast 16 angle. I have a couple versions here, but I'm really hoping to see them at NAB to really take the screws to them and ask them the hard questions as to where things are going. There are some advantages, there are some disadvantages to switching over. So the real question is, what is your production doing now? And can that feature be used on Wirecast, or is that a vMix feature that you just can't replicate there?
Yeah. the difference between features and stability is always something you want to pay attention to. Like, it doesn't matter if it's got lots of features, if it can't do them well. And I would just say that I'd be very concerned about using Wirecast at this point. Like, it is really, it's very unstable. Like, and hopefully, I mean, I feel like they almost have to just strip down and start writing a new one. Like, they've just cobbled this together and it just does not work. It does not work. Next question.
Next up is from Ronnie Holstoy in Tromsø, Norway. Can camera equipment be damaged during the eclipse while filming directly towards the sun?
If you zoom in on the sun before the totality begins, you will burn out your sensor. If you wait until the totality begins after the pearls have disappeared, you have to take the filters off to do that. So you need filters before that. You don't need filters. You can't use filters after that. And then you need to cover it back up before you start getting back to totality. So you have to pay attention to the end of totality, and that's the key to the operation there. Next question.
Next up is from Zach Chautauqua. Zach Stallsmith from Chautauqua, New York. Has anyone had more testing time with NDI6, pros or cons?
I don't think we've had a chance to look at it yet, but we're really excited about it. So we're going to be doing testing very soon in NDI6. Right now, we're mostly focused on NAB. But once we get through NAB, I think there's going to be a lot of testing here to especially test the HDR. Next question.
Next up is from David Brady from New York. Using shocks to multi-pair with laptop and phone, but both devices pair with device 1 connected, device 2 connected. Is this a firmware thing where it doesn't read the device name?
It could be. I will say that I don't let my stuff pair very often to two different things. That's something that usually is really problematic. So I would be concerned about that. I think that's the problem you're having. A quick reminder that we're probably going to end pretty quickly here, but I want to remind you of a couple things. We've got the panel view. We got the intro to panel panelists happening in about an hour. So we'll be still doing that at 9:00. So stay tuned for that. And of course, we will be having introspection tomorrow. So if you've got questions about office hours directly and the things that we work on, and of course, we're going to be talking more and more about NAB as we get up to it. The NAB coverage is going to be a pretty big deal for us. So if you're interested, just keep watching. Next week should be really interesting. I don't know if they're ready to do that or not, so I did it myself. Anyway, let's go to the last question.
Last question for today comes from Craig McFarland from Boston, Massachusetts. My Eclipse plans changed from flying to driving. What office hours recording would be worth reviewing for equipment to bring?
We did talk about covering the Eclipse a couple months ago. I don't remember exactly what episode we talked about that there. And it really depends on everything else that you might want to do. So having a tracking system, there's a lot of different things that you might want to take into account there. So I don't have an answer for you because I just don't know what equipment you have with you. If you're not going to have a 400 millimeter lens on a camera with a tracker, I would just enjoy the Eclipse. Like if you haven't set it up yet, and you're a couple days away, it's an amazing experience. Don't shoot it. Lots of people are going to shoot great shots of it. You can watch those later. You can download them. Just really be in the moment. It's incredible. It's just a really, really incredible moment. Don't worry about covering it. If this isn't the time to learn how to track the sun, or to shoot it or anything else. Just look up at the thing that has inspired probably more people than anything else in the history of man. Like it is really, really a thing, as far as a natural phenomenon, not a person, but a natural phenomenon. It's amazing. Just go enjoy it. I'm really bummed that I'm not going to get to see it because of NAB and everything else. I had to clip my trip, and everybody's telling me that they're going down there, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I'm not going to see this. So anyway, but if you're anywhere near it, you need to go to it. But don't fiddle with your equipment. It's hard to describe what the experience is like to see it. And you should just go and enjoy it. That's it. I kept on thinking we were close to the end of the hour. I was like, we can just close at the end of the hour. We didn't quite make it, but there we go. A little bit of a dangling participle. I love that word. I love that term. I don't even know what it means anymore. Anyway, so thank you so much. Thanks to the incredible work by the development team. The system needed to get moved. Kind of got pushed back a little bit, and so John's team did an incredible job of um, uh, making the move. And then the whole dev team really worked on a workaround to make sure that we had a show today. And I just really want to call out to all of them that just really fantastic work. We really appreciate the incredible, skill and dedication that this team has to making sure that we have a show every day. Just really, really appreciate it. And thanks you to the panel. Can't do this without you. Thanks for Jeffrey for jumping in and reading questions for us. We appreciate that. I kind of put him on the spot. I was like, "You're going to do this today, Jeffrey, aren't you?" Didn't give him a lot of choice. So anyway, we appreciate that as well. And thanks to everyone who was all of our producers watching. And thank you to asking all the great questions and keeping us going here through that hour. And I think a lot of people worry about whether it's a long day or a short day. We're just here for you. So we're here to answer your questions as long as it takes. You don't need to make the show any longer or shorter or anything else. We're here to, the goal here is to be available to people who are trying to figure something out every single day. The length of the show is, especially on Q&A days, is less important to us as it is to just making sure that we were able to check in. And if there was something you were working on, we were able to solve it or attempt to solve it or at least talk about it. So anyway, so thank you so much. And now if we had to walk around and ask all these questions with the Tlaloc traversal, we didn't have the Tlaloc traversal, we would have, let me see if I can, somehow my system is not working. This new mouse is kind of not working. We would have traveled 78,000 miles. That's 125,000 kilometers. And that is 614 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into after hour. We made it.
I forgot my water.
I didn't drink any of my tea. My tea is my second hour. I have my coffee in the first hour, and then I have the tea in the second hour, and I didn't get to the tea, but I get it now.
Good job, Jeffrey.
Bag out. Yeah, good job, Jeffrey.
Thanks.
Thanks for jumping in.
Both feet.
Both feet. Without even seeing the bottom of the pool. He just went right into the deep end.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good work. All right. See everybody. See some of you in an hour. New panelist view. New panelist.